Did you watch the previous streams with the other Hindu fella, Pandit Rami, I think his name?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think overall with what he said? Because I know that there are different understandings of, or different strains within the tradition. Is there anything that you disagreed with that he had to say, or?
I disagreed with probably 85% of what he said.
Really?
Only?
Wow.
Only 85%.
Okay, so
the only bits I agreed with was reincarnation and cyclical creation and destruction.
Okay. Do you think that is generally the view of most?
Yeah, so his views are very popular today, historically throughout India.
So you disagree with 85% only?
Yeah, so his views are popular. That doesn't mean his views are supported by the scripture, or that they were popular historically. His views come from they're influenced by Advaitavad as taught by Adi Shankaracharya, and then influenced further by Vivekananda and the Ramakrishna mission, who had a mission to create one book and one religion for Hinduism so that India could compete with Christianity. And in order to do that, when India had such a diversity of religious views, they had to come up with a kind of relativism. So they chose Advaitavad because it's, everything's one. You worship Ganesh, you worship whoever you want. It's all the same thing. And ultimately, none of it exists. It's just a form you can fix your mind on until you can become advanced enough to fix your mind on the impersonal absolute beyond all these forms. And this is how they got around all the pluralism in India, all the variety of religions. And when they did that, though, they created something which was foreign to Hinduism up until then. It's not supported by the previous acharyas in any other tradition. They created their own thing, and they tried to include everyone, but they categorically contradicted Vaishnavism, which historically was the most popular tradition. So Vaishnavism, which is the broader category of one of the traditions I'm in, categorically contradicted by this neo-Vedanta or neo-Hinduism. And a lot of people have problems with it. It's not really supported by the text either. And even with Adi Shankaracharya, what he did in order to teach covered Buddhism and argue for it based on the Vedas is he came up with really twisted hermeneutics. So he said that there's Mahavakyas, so there's statements which are the great statements, and then anything which disagrees with this, we just have to come up with twist it in order to agree. So like when something doesn't logically make sense, you understand it as a metaphor, like the village on the Ganga. Obviously, the village wasn't on the river. The village was on the bank of the river. It's just a poetic way of referring to the village on the Ganga. That's an example of taking an indirect meaning where the direct meaning doesn't work. But Adi Shankaracharya took indirect meanings all over the place just because he said these are the Mahavakyas. But in the Vaishnava traditions, we take the text literally way far more. So we're taking the direct meaning as much as we can, and we think this is a far better hermeneutic, that it's only if the direct meaning doesn't work that you'd go for an indirect meaning. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for me, so many things are coming. I taught this teachings before, like Pandit Rami, one really bad example of it was he said, when Krishna, you guys asked him, so Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says something about those who worship the demigods are in ignorance. And Pandit Rami is like, oh, what he means by that is those who worship these personalities thinking that they're the real deal, they're in ignorance. And he was saying the same thing is true for people who worship Krishna. But Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, those who study this teaching worship me by intelligence, abandon all varieties and surrender to me. And there's Krishna, a person who shook his hand, with the form standing in front of him. And here Pandit Rami is saying, oh, Krishna didn't really mean that. Like Ramakrishna in his Bhagavad Gita said, Krishna doesn't, what he means is you surrender to the impersonal absolute, which is beyond Krishna. That's not there in the text. He's just adding his own meaning in. Sorry, that was a little rant.
It seems like it's more of a modernist view to basically appeal to the West in a way.
Yeah, so they borrowed from Adi Shankaracharya, who taught a lot of these kinds of things. They chose that one, though, because it enabled them to appeal to the West. And they wanted to compete with Christianity and say Hinduism is one thing, we're a united people. Whereas traditionally in India, people had different views and they identified with their little sect and they respected people from different sects and they peacefully coexisted. But they didn't have to have this idea that we're all Hindus together. It's like you worship Kali, you worship Shiva, I worship Vishnu, and we're all on our path.
So
I disagree with your views.
How, I just, as terms of percentage, how much of the world today do you think that embraces Hinduism would be represented by Pandit Rami's view versus your view, just out of curiosity?
Oh, I don't know what percentage, but definitely the majority.
Okay,
especially
so
Indians. So,
majority.
like Westerners who practice Hinduism, they're basically Hare Krishnas with few exceptions, at least to my knowledge. But Indians, that just identify ethnically. So a lot of people who would agree with Pandit Rami's views, a lot of people in that camp are Indians who've never really considered the views. Like they think of the Hinduism as an ethnicity. Like they have their food, they have their deities, they have their music, they have their religion. They think it's just part of their ethnicity. Whereas, like for me, Krishna consciousness is a way of life. It's my whole life is divined around dedicating my life to God through this tradition, and feeling like I've got the absolute truth handed down in this tradition, and trying to understand that and trying to share that.
Now, Arjuna, just one last question from me on this topic, and then you guys can come in. I know you have your own YouTube channel. Do you have discussions or debates with people from Pandit Rami's position, or you don't engage in that type of stuff?
I haven't done that yet, but I would like to. I just
so you would be open to it?
I'm open to that. Yeah, I haven't found anyone. No, I haven't really gone looking. I've asked for maybe one or two, but yeah, if I can find a quality person who can have a nice philosophical discussion, I'd love to host
Rami
that.
himself?
Yeah, I'd be up for that. I actually emailed him. Somebody emailed me warning me, saying you shouldn't come on this channel. They're gonna start debating you. And I'm like, I like a good debate. But they included Pandit Rami in that email. And
I'd like to see you and Pandit Rami debate, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
That would be nice.
That would be good. Yeah, that would be